This should be the first of maybe hundreds of videos to give you at-homers a few quick ideas, a few quick tips on how to get the most out of some of the simpler fab tools you might want to have around your garage. Basically, bandsaw, belt sander, drill press. You'd be amazed once you get good with those things how much you can really do with them as far as getting your project underway. The first one being the bandsaw. Well, first off, I have to say, the Blackdog legal team scolded me for not recommending when I did the lathe video that anytime you play with a lathe, a bandsaw, whatever, you need to wear safety glasses. Get your safety glasses. Hearing protection on louder machines and stuff is good too. Nice set of earmuffs or some earplugs, which are dual purpose because you're busy, you're trying to get something done. The wife and kids just won't shut up. So the headphones are kind of a dual purpose thing. But yeah, use the safety equipment and do not wear gloves. I don't know what it is with these kids these days. Everything they do, they're wearing rubber gloves, they're wearing cloth gloves. Hey, you got hands, you know, toughen them up a little bit. Do not wear gloves and such around equipment like this. It will suck you in if they catch, okay? As opposed to the little nick you might get if you went too far. So leave the gloves in the kitchen. Don't be messing with gloves. But let's get real basic starting on the bandsaw. You don't even own one yet. Okay, a couple things you're looking for. You want a metal cutting bandsaw, I'm sure, which means the blade speed is real critical. You're after a really slow crawling type blade speed to be able to cut steel effectively. And to give you an idea, the saw you might be looking at, anything from 50 to 150 what they call surface feet per minute, which is the rate the blade is passing through the material, is the kind of speed you want. If it's not labeled on the machine and you're just out there looking at this bandsaw you're thinking of buying, just to give you a rough idea when you go ahead and click it on what a wheel looks like when it's going that kind of slow speed. If this was a wood cutting bandsaw, that thing would be just flying around. But this nice, slow, crawly speed is what you're after for good metal cutting. And smaller saw like this, a 14-inch, is real common around the shop. They're out there used economically. You know, I've seen them from $500 to $700. Brand new, this one here with a 2-speed transmission on it to speed it up to cut aluminum is a couple grand brand new out of the box. But they're available used, and you can pick up a decent one if you put enough time into looking for it. As far as blades go, a real good multi-purpose blade for any kind of steel, aluminum, pretty much anything, even wood, if you stick around high speed, is a variable pitch 10 to 14. So it goes from 10 to 14 teeth, and it keeps things really, really smooth. You could go with a straight 14, but that gets a little fine when you're doing thicker materials. So just a couple little hints to help you out with using the bandsaw. I keep just a little vise laying around on my setup table because there's always something you need to throw into the bandsaw that's either got a jog in it or it's unequal. And if you were to just set that down on the bandsaw table, there's no way to make a straight cut on it. So just by using a simple little vise, to give you an example, if I had to cut the head off this bolt, this vise is going to grab the bolt, keep the shank straight, and I'll be able to get it in there and make a nice straight cut. The other thing I do around the bandsaw is I've always got scraps of wood and stuff laying around because it's really handy to have a bit of a pusher every now and then. The pusher, you don't care if it goes into the blade, your fingers you do. And it gives you a little more power to push through also. So that's one little trick. The other thing is, a lot of times, you may have to cut something off that's really small diameter and really round, and you may have to cut several pieces. It's really hard to get it into the bandsaw and get it started without the teeth wanting to grab and turn it and do all that goofy stuff to it and jerk it out of your hand, and then you get scared and cry and run away. So again, that little vise really helps in grabbing that thing so you can get it in there and use a pusher if you want, or hold on the other end and make a cut without the thing jerking around. So that helps quite a bit. And as far as actually using the saw and getting good straight cuts, one of the things is to keep the blade a little bit lubed up. And one of the better things I found are these stick lubricant things, which means you don't have all kinds of spray and drippy mess stuff around. And all it takes is just a couple little feeds with the blade, which gets some of this cutting wax into the teeth. And as you cut, the heat will melt this stuff and turn it into a liquid cutting fluid. And you'd really be surprised how much longer a blade will last and how much easier it is to cut, because you can kind of feel it when it starts to wear out and you give the blade another taste of it, you know. Always adjust your blade guide down as far as you can to reasonably see what you're doing, because that's what's grabbing the blade and helping you steer to get a nice straight cut. And you always have to steer a bandsaw blade. That's just the way they are. You don't just push it in and start going. It will not follow the line. You're the one that has to follow the line. And this is a piece of aluminum, so it's not really hard to cut and it'll go fast. But one of the tricks is, and you'll have to clean off some of that excess wax as you start. One of the tricks in following a line is these blade guides, they'll take a little bit of abuse, and so will the blades. There's clearance between those so the blade can turn. Well, that clearance is what lets the blade wobble back and forth and makes you have to steer a lot. So once you're into the cut, if you give it some side pressure against the blade as you're pushing, that side pressure gets you to a point where you darn near don't have to steer as much. And it's a lot easier to follow the line because the blade isn't darting around and floating free. And the other thing that side pressure helps you do is when you start getting to an end of a cut like this and the blade wants to jump out and leave you with that square edge you got to file down or whatever, with the proper side pressure on it, you can actually get that blade, keeping the side pressure, you can get that blade to follow the line all the way out. And if it didn't quite follow it all the way out, again, with side pressure, you can kind of go in there and tune it up a little bit and get it right on the money. And the thing is with using the side pressure, if you just needed to take a little bitty cut that's barely over a blade width off one side, once you get it started and you use the side pressure, I'm making a cut right there that is not even as wide as the blade, and you can go all the way down like that with the side pressure. Without the side pressure, it'll just steer all cattywampus and go wherever you want. The other thing, as far as having some wood laying around, the wood comes in pretty handy, especially when you're cutting sheet metal and really thin stuff, because it can really get noisy and really want to bounce down against the metal table. So using a piece of wood as far as a cushion, it really helps the noise factor, and it helps you feed a little smoother, and it makes it a whole lot easier to cut And there you'll find there's a lot of times a piece of wood will help you cut an odd shaped thing too, using it underneath to support it and all that kind of stuff. Another common problem with a saw that's only got a 14-inch span on it, well, you need to cut a 3-foot piece off a 20-foot tube. Everybody says, oh, how do you do that? Well, if you've got enough material that you can cut over the length you want, basically what you do, come in and cut it off on an angle, or at least until you hit over here. Figure out what kind of angle you need until you're going to hit over there. So what that'll let you do is push it all the way through and cut it. I'm not going to waste a good piece of material. Push it all the way through and cut it, and then take your cutoff piece and just square the end of it. Real simple. Especially if you don't have a fall down cutoff saw for doing long pieces of tubing and everything. Other than that, you know, there's this little gizmo here, which is what the slot is designed for, will help you hold stuff at a 45-degree angle or whatever angle you dial in. Because of the way these blades tend to wander and whatever, you're rarely if ever going to put a piece in here, push it through, and the blade's not going to go near. So it's nice to use these to get you started at the right angle, but then I kind of leave this behind as I'm pushing through and finish the cut to the mark I've made. It's really good to have good, sharp, easy to read marks so you can see where you're going. So just that, and using it a lot and getting used to it, and you should be able to get a whole lot out of a little old man saw.